It's been a roller coaster of emotions for Boston Celtics fans this off season, and we got some updates revolving around the trades that Brad Stevens performed before the draft, as they are now official alongside the signings that the Celtics have made in free agency. So we're going to dive into that and also explore some updates revolving around one key free agent that still is out there for the Boston Celtics, with a little update revolving around him on if his decision is going to be imminent or not. So we're going to get into all of that here on this episode of Celtics Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been fantastic showing your love and support here on the channel. We've been looking at some Celtics news. It's been a little bit dry these last couple of days, so I haven't been on here over those bunch of days. But with this new news coming in, I wanted to make sure I got it for all of you guys here to discuss what could we see potentially for the Celtics still here in this off season. So without further ado, we're going to get started and dive into the video today. Thank you guys so much for letting us hit 7,000 subscribers. And if you do enjoy the content, make sure to continue to hit that subscribe button. But without further ado, let's dive in and let's explore the news. It is official. The Boston Celtics have gone through and have gotten their trades finalized here that they made before the draft. If we want to dive in and look at those, we can see, courtesy of Dan Greenberg here, life moves at you fast in the NBA, as the Jrue Holiday trade with the Portland Trail Blazers and the Kristaps Porziņģis trade with the Atlanta Hawks have been officially now made clear and done. Now, they couldn't have gone through until after July 6th, and that was something that a lot of Celtics fans were keeping their eyes on. So maybe seeing some additions in some of these trades, or seeing the Celtics looking to shed even potentially some more salary, as they still have to do so, which we'll get into it a little bit. But unfortunately, that was not the case. But there was an iteration and a change for the trade here today involving Anthony Simons and Jrue Holiday, as that deal originally had the Celtics getting 2 second-round picks alongside Anthony Simons for Jrue Holiday. That has now just been changed to a 1-for-1 swap, and that can happen because these trades, once again, were not finalized until July 6th or July 7th. They were mutually agreed upon verbally, but things can change. And that's why players could potentially be added or things to get moved. And for the Celtics, unfortunately here, they did lose some second-round picks. The nature of this happening was said because of Jrue Holiday's finger injury that was coming into play coming into last season. They felt like that they didn't need to give up that much capital in return alongside Anthony Simons. The Celtics originally agreed and went through with that. Now, you could also look back to draft day, where the Boston Celtics made a trade at pick 32, where they traded out of that pick and giving it to the Magic for Amari Williams, Max Strus, and 2 second-round picks, and maybe making that linkage a little bit making more sense, because if the Celtics knew that they weren't going to look at these second-round picks in a Jrue Holiday trade, they were going to have to get those picks eventually. So moving back specifically, when a guy in Rasheer Fleming, someone you wanted at pick 32, was leapfrogged in front of you by the Suns, and they were for sure taking him at 31, it was a smart decision for Brad Stevens to trade out of that selection. So revolving around that, those trades have now been officially gone through. And also, we do see from Keith Smith of Spot Track that the Celtics have officially now signed Luka Garza and Josh Minott, which puts the Celtics currently, as we state, now with obviously these 2 trades going through with Georges Niang and Anthony Simons on this roster. 15 current spots here for the Boston Celtics. And we do know there is one key free agent that is still out there after Luke Kornet has already signed, and that now has been official now with the San Antonio Spurs, with him wearing number 7. The Celtics are still keeping their eye out on a guy in Al Horford, who's still getting some options, and we'll get into a little bit later here what the decision and stuff rolling around Horford maybe mean for the Celtics. But when looking back at these trades, the final thing I would like to say is obviously respect to Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porziņģis for being here. Obviously, we were happy that they were able to come and win banner 18 for the Boston Celtics, and I wish them nothing but the best of luck on their new franchises. And for this Boston Celtics team, now with getting Georges Niang and Anthony Simons brought in, these players can be traded still, so keep an eye on that, but they cannot be aggregated in trades. Now, the Celtics are still in the second apron, so they can't really aggregate salaries at this point unless the trade dropped them below the first to do so. But as we stand right now, Anthony Simons and Georges Niang cannot be combined together in a deal, or cannot be combined with the salaries of a J.D. Davidson or Jordan Walsh, Xavier Tillman, etc., if the Boston Celtics were to drop below into that first apron until 6 months. That is something to keep an eye on with those guys. So does expect they will be coming to Boston. But let's dive in and let's look at the other updates revolving around this Celtics team, as more news has kind of come through, which is very, interesting is, like I mentioned, one of those key free agents for the Boston Celtics is still out there in free agency and has not decided or made a decision yet. And a lot of people are questioning what that move is going to be. So with the latest from Adam Himmelsbach, from the Boston Globe that comes through today, we hear a little bit about Al Horford, a little bit about these trades things here, and a little bit more about the Celtics and what they're eyeing to do. So when looking at this article, we see from the Boston Celtics regarding the trade front that a league source said Monday that no trades for the Celtics are imminent at this moment, but the Celtics could continue to explore all avenues here on the trade front. There is often a haul during this part of the offseason, but movement in restricted free agency market could heat up soon, and that could lead the Boston Celtics to being involved in some of these trades, and some of these players lose out on some restricted free agents that they are targeting. Now, like I mentioned, and like I just previously stated, that's what I was alluding to with Anthony Simons and Georges Niang. I don't really see them being traded. Maybe if the Boston Celtics want to shed some salary, right, because they still are over the second apron, looking to trade a guy like Xavier Tillman, maybe Jordan Walsh, who I still believe in, but if they sign Josh Minott, maybe they feel like that's going to be their filler replacement, or J.D. Davidson's team contract that they picked up as a non-guaranteed deal. They can waive that non-guaranteed contract and cut that $2 million, or potentially look to move off of one of these smaller deals with those second-round picks that they've accumulated to get off some money, open a free roster spot, and have some extent of the MLE to offer to Al Horford. And that gets into the next part here when talking about Al Horford, as former Celtics center Luke Kornet has officially now signed his 4-year, $41 million deal on with the Spurs on Monday, where the veteran big man now, Al Horford, is still remaining a free agent with his future remaining unclear. A league source said Monday that Horford is taking his time while addressing all offers from multiple teams, and noted that the 39-year-old is considering retirement as well. We did see Al Horford obviously have his sixth child, or going to be having his sixth child as it was announced. So that is another reason to maybe think that he could lead to retirement. But I'm sticking with my guns and something that I said here on Celtics Digest this past week, which is that I think Al Horford wants to stay in Boston and doesn't want to leave. These other teams that have been offering him these monetary deals, like the Lakers, like the Warriors, they're on the, maybe even the Nuggets, are on the other side of the country. And if he's having a kid and wants to, able to be with his family, he's not just going to up and leave them to go play one season in Denver or one season in LA or one season in Golden State to try to win a championship and come back. This is not the situation that we were with Al Horford a couple years ago when he left for the 76ers. He already won his championship. He's already engraved into this Celtic culture, and I truly do think he wants to stay here with his teammate in Jayson Tatum, not only just help him rehab a little bit this year, but maybe even potentially be back for the following season if they can ink him to a 2-year deal. Now, obviously, that's a little bit thinking outside the box, but I do think that Al Horford wants to stay here, and that's why we've noted with the Celtics that they probably tried to move Anthony Simons, they probably tried to move Georges Niang, but they couldn't move off of those contracts, and now they're put in this situation here where they had to accept those deals, but could still shed some salary to open a roster spot to have if they drop below the second apron with that non-full tax mid-level, which is $5 million to offer to Al Horford. And I know out there in the open market, he's probably getting $7 to $8 million from guys like the Warriors, the Nuggets, maybe even the Lakers over there. But if the Celtics can offer him that $5 million, even if it is just a little bit of a cheaper of a pay cut, it still is not the veteran minimum and just a little bit of a pay raise, I still think that's something that he would take. I think he would take a pay cut to stay with Boston, to stay with this team, if that were the case, if it was still at that limit that could be attainable for him on the open market, if it's not too much of a pay cut. And I think that's what we're seeing with Al Horford here. Now, ultimately, I could be wrong. We could see Al Horford go to another team at some point, right? The Celtics can't get that money shed enough. Al Horford finally realizes that he's going to have to leave Boston. That could be his decision. But at this moment, it is not imminent for Horford to make a decision, and he still is considering retirement, which I have always said that I think he's going to play next season. I still think that option is probably ruling a little bit more than some other ones, but that also is still in the back of his head as well, as he is 39, is about to have his sixth kid. Maybe he does want to stay and retire and just be a father now and just kind of take his time off after he had such a great run with the Celtics just 2 seasons ago, winning an NBA championship. Ultimately, though, like I said, I'm sticking with my guns, and I think Horford wants to play next season because he said multiple times he can still play, and I think he wants to stay in Boston. He's going to wait to see what Brad Stevens can do with his magic to make some moves to get those options to bring him back. And if that's not the case, then we'll see Horford, unfortunately, playing in another jersey, because all signs have been pointing to Horford playing somewhere else. But with the decision of him not making one now, specifically not after the first day of free agency, not after the first couple of days, but now we're in the second full day of actual free agency starting, with the new league calendar starting on July 6th, now it being July 7th. Horford still hasn't made a decision. I'm pretty confident that means he's going to be trying to stay with Boston. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Like I said, we got some news revolving around the Celtics here. They have not, unfortunately, released their summer league schedule. So once they get that out, we'll definitely dive into that, because there have been some names that have already popped that people have been talking about. But I do want to look at the list as a whole and break down what we can really get from summer league with Patrick and I. So I hope you guys do enjoy the content. Like I said, thank you guys so much for hitting the subscribe button and letting us know your thoughts down below. So letting us know what you think on these latest updates here from the Boston Celtics. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.